Viewers, it's a good evening today here. It's warm weather in California, and I hope it is the same wherever you are. If you're in the northern hemisphere, the fall is coming, knocking on the door, and there are interesting times ahead. There's a huge election coming up in 3 weeks' time in the United States, and in fact, we can cast our votes even starting today. We can go and put our ballot box papers and assign ballot boxes. And there is a lot of activity, a lot of uncertainty. People are putting out a lot of opinion polls, but nobody is really sure who's going to win. And in the midst of all this, there is very interesting activity going on regarding NGOs or non-governmental organizations. You take the case of US or India or even Saudi Arabia, the reformist-minded countries. There seems to be some dark undercurrents that are going on. To know more about this, the implications, who is behind it, and what is their motive, let's meet Professor M D Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, namaskaram, and welcome back to PGurus after a hiatus of a few weeks.
Thank you so much, Sri. It's always a privilege to come on your channel.
Sir, the privilege is all mine, sir. Please, you are a veteran journalist, much regarded, much respected. And I'm just, I owe a lot of my enthusiasm and passion to your encouragement. I don't know if you remember, a few years back, we had this conversation. I was still thinking about writing, and then you said, don't worry, just do it. Do what your passion directs you to do. And there was like the spur that pushed me out. But anyway, this is something that I owe it to you for the rest of my life, because you discovered something that I didn't know existed inside me. That is a writer, journalist, an investigating journalist, and so on. But Professor Nalapat, rid us this puzzle. What is happening with these NGO organizations? There appears to be a concerted plan, because you look at every election, something very, very similar happens.
Well, Sri, I'd like to say that 95% of NGOs are wonderful people. They do absolutely brilliant work. Some of them, of that 95%, maybe about a quarter, you have people who are basically in it for the publicity or in it for the good times or the easy money that they can get from sponsors. But the overwhelming majority of them work very hard, very sincerely, in a very dedicated way across the world. The problem is the small percentage of NGOs who are involved in activities which are not savory. And if I may say so, Sri, you know, I mean, like I said about the United States, you're really good at finding out the dots, but not very good at connecting the right dots. So you connect the wrong dots to each other. For example, you have a lot of talk about Russian interference in, in various activities. Very definitely that must be going on. There's no question about it. But I would only like to say, who would be funding this interference? Who would be behind this interference? Today, you have a rock-solid Sino-Russian alliance. So if the Russians are acting as the cat's paw, the milk being fed to the cat is from the country which is now the challenger to the United States in the global sweepstakes. So that kind of activity is going on. And if I may say so, Sri, I've been a little intrigued by the way in which there's an effort to demonize India and its leaders in the United States and demonize the United States and its leaders in India. Why? Because it's very important that these two biggest democracies come together in the battle against authoritarianism, in the battle against extremism. And when you seek to turn public opinion against almost the two countries, the two peoples, and of course the people who have been elected to lead them, then actually you are striking a blow for precisely those forces that you would want to oppose. So you're unwittingly acting as what they call useful idiots of malign forces. So this is what is going on now. And it's not just India. You were talking about Saudi Arabia. Now, Mohammed bin Salman may have his, unpleasant points. He comes from, a location where it's a pretty tough neighborhood. But the reality is, the man has introduced women into leadership roles in Makkah and Medina. I think that is perfectly in line with the traditions of the Prophet of Islam. I mean, don't forget, Muhammad had tremendous respect for his wife Khadija, tremendous respect. And he showed that respect throughout his life, throughout his wonderful life with her. So the reality is that, again, Mohammed bin Salman understands that the future of Saudi Arabia has got to be education, modern education. And for that, you need a different kind of mindset. And I think the young will go along with that. So yes, the reform from an American point of view, or even from an Indian point of view, is not very much. But by Saudi standards, it's a great leap forward. So what happens? You have a demonization of Mohammed bin Salman. In fact, I track events in Saudi Arabia very, very carefully. And I can tell you, inside the royal family, there are many people who are angry with Mohammed bin Salman for basically interfering with the money grabbing work that they have been active in for so many decades. The tens of billions that they have made illegally, skimming from various scams. And they're very angry with Mohammed bin Salman for taking some of that away. And they're looking at replacing him. And they're hoping that if Biden gets elected to the White House, well, that will happen. If that happens, I can tell you, it will be a disaster for Saudi Arabia, a disaster for the Arab world, and a disaster for the United States and India. Because then the last hope of reform will be killed. Mohammed bin Salman is the only member of the Al Saud family in the rulership history of the Al Sauds to break from Wahhabism. And he may have his problems, he may have his faults, he may have committed certain things which, frankly, you and I would not be very happy with. But the reality is, among the available choices, he's by far the best bet. So this chatter that I'm hearing in Saudi Arabia, oh, let's wait for Biden, let's wait for Biden. Then MBS is gone, MBS is done for. Look, this is scaring me, frankly. It's also been scaring me that Biden and Kamala Harris, talked in some, I'm sorry to say, very ununderstanding terms about CAA. Now, Sri, I have never, frankly, hidden my view that the way CAA was presented was completely juvenile and it was completely wrong from the point of view of optics and communication. I would have called it the Minorities Protection Act, instead of which it was presented, whether it was done intentionally or not, as an anti-Muslim act, essentially, that you exclude the Muslims. And this is ridiculous. You cannot have it that way. It's a question of, in certain Muslim countries, minorities are shabbily treated, so they are welcome here. It's not anti-Muslim at all. It should not be seen as that. But regrettably, it was presented in an extremely harmful way, and this gave ammunition to the enemies of India to go and attack the Prime Minister on CAA, which I would have called a Minorities Protection Act. Of course, I would frankly have not, I would have tweaked this in a different way. I would have presented it in a different way. But the reality is that minorities have been terribly persecuted in Pakistan. They are being persecuted in Bangladesh, in parts of Bangladesh. And in Afghanistan, those parts run by the Taliban, they are definitely, if they're there at all, they are being persecuted. So this could have been done in a different way. But this was seized upon to go and launch a ferocious attack on Prime Minister Modi and on India. And I would like to say that Egypt. Now, Egypt is the linchpin, if I may say so, of the Arab world, along with Saudi Arabia. And, you may have your problems with General Sisi. Definitely, he's not the most charming individual, the most democratic individual that you've seen in the world. But the reality is, he is opposing fanaticism. He is opposing religious extremism, and Egypt has been the hub and home of the religious extremist theologies across centuries. So from now, whether it is Al-Sisi, whether it is Mohammed Bin Salman, whether it's Narendra Modi, there's the demonization of all three in the United States. And I'm sorry to say, many in the Republican camp, many in the Democratic camp have fallen for that. The reality is, America needs Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and India under its current leaders to face the challenges that are confronting the entire democratic world. India needs the United States. So separating, Saudi Arabia needs the United States. Egypt needs the United States. So the way there is an effort to demonize, countries in each other strikes me as being, not only unfortunate, but possibly not coincidental, given the fact that you have a contest for leadership between the China and the United States, and the China and the Russia together are very good at this kind of subliminal messaging, and very good at creating entities who create entities who create entities that will fund NGOs who do not even know who is the final, paymaster.
Yes, this is something that has been much of a topic of discussion in the United States as well. As you can see, the 7 city council resolutions thus far that were passed against the CAA, the resolutions were all written by CAIR, Council for American Islamic Relations. Many of the top people there have had some very questionable dealings. They are under the scanner, and I think those things will come out soon. And hopefully, the Democrats will stop, taking this line. So you have something to say.
Look, I only want to say CAIR, fine. There may be some good people there. Why don't you go to parts of the world where Muslims are in a majority and where minorities are oppressed? Where, for example, Shia are oppressed or Sunnis are oppressed. Why don't you concentrate on that? Why don't you try and help them set their own house in order? You are enjoying the benefits of democracy. You are enjoying the benefits of secularism. You are, in fact, using that to your fullest extent. Now, please go to all these different countries. As I said, physician, heal thyself. My point is very simple. Now, MF Hussain, for example, frankly, I'm a person who goes for free speech and free painting, but I would only, I used to ask during those days when he was around, why is it that he's not painting the images from other religions? Why is he not painting the images of the Abrahamic religions? Why only the Hindu religion? If he were painting the Abrahamic religions, including, the religion in which he was born into, then it would be understandable. But only one religion, this is almost like an agenda. So I would only like to say CAIR needs to be front and center in the Muslim majority world, especially in locations where minorities, including Shia, are being persecuted. In Pakistan, where Baloch, Pashtuns, Mohajirs, Sindhis, and not just Hindus and Sikhs, who are the few remaining who are there, they need to go there. Why can't CAIR have a press conference in Pakistan about the need to treat people equally and fairly the way they are treated in the United States or in other democracies? That is what CAIR needs to do. And instead of which, frankly, it is completely ignoring the injustices that take place there. And if I may remind CAIR, and again, I'd like to say, I would not like to be a critic of CAIR. I'm sure many of the people there are decent people, but I'd only like to say the reason why there is a certain amount of anti-Muslim feeling that's spreading is precisely because of the very bad example being set by some countries against minorities and their fellow Muslims who are moderate and who do not belong to their own sects.
In fact, I'm glad you mentioned the topic of Shia, because in one of the hangouts, I had Wasim Rizvi, the head of the Shia Council, come on, hang out with PGurus, and he expressed that he wants to be considered as a separate religion. He doesn't even want to associate himself as a Muslim. That was a little surprising for me, but that's how far they are afraid. Go ahead, sir.
Look, I am a little confused about Mr. Rizvi. Frankly, he has made certain comments that, 10 or so religious sites, mosques have got to be handed over to the Hindus. I think that's a very dangerous, slippery slope. Dr. Swami and myself, we have been very clear. 3 and only 3 sites are important for the Hindus: Kashi, Mathura, and Ayodhya. The minute you make it even 4 sites, you are seriously affecting the prospect of an amicable resolution of those 3 sites. So frankly, Mr. Rizvi may please some people by saying, oh, why only 3? Let's have 11, let's have more. And some people say, let's have 11,000. I can only say these people are doing a disservice, frankly, to Sanatan Dharma, to Hindu-Muslim amity, and to the world, because all that the Hindus are looking for is 3 sites, absolutely 3 sites. And again, I would like to say, when comments are made, which frankly are very different from that, of the mainstream, then the question comes about the motivation of these comments. And some of these comments, I'd like to say, they will, so then, it does a certain amount of damage. So the kind of comments that we are talking about, it does a certain amount of damage. So I'd only like to say, was very disappointed when Mr. Rizvi started talking about more than 3 sites. I am a devout Sanatani. Dr. Swami, I think, is, much more devout than I am. We are both very clear. 3 and only 3 sites, have got to be returned to the Hindus. That is Kashi, Mathura, and Ayodhya, and not a single site more. Those who talk of more sites are doing an immense disservice to the future of India and the world.
Thanks for that clarification, Professor Nalapat. In summary, the new crackdown on FCRA regulations on NGOs, is that effective, or do you think more needs to be done?
Well, frankly, as far as Amnesty International is concerned, I don't know what the problems were, but I would suggest to Amnesty that they go back to the Income Tax Department, that they go back to the Supreme Court, for example. If they have, and they have a problem, they don't just, quit and run away and make a big show of it. I'm sorry to say that, Amnesty has also been, if I may say so, slightly blind to many of the human rights violations that have been taking place in some parts of the country, for example, on the Bangladesh border, or for example, in the northern side of India. They don't seem to be very conscious of those things. I don't know where Amnesty was when temples were being destroyed in their dozens in Kashmir. I don't know where Amnesty has been when you have seen a lot of persecution take place on the borders of Bangladesh or in Bangladesh. I would like to say, I have no problem with Amnesty working in India. No problem at all. I would be sorry to see them leave the country, but I am a little dismayed that they just ran away from India. They should have gone back to the Indian courts. They should have gone back to Indian public opinion, and they should have gone back to the income tax authorities and publicly, transparently, on the internet, put the entire communications with them. Long back I'd heard about Amnesty that they have a lot of small donations, huge amounts of small donations that are going without any name being put on them. Well, if that is true, then that should be acknowledged. I don't know the facts about it, but I'd simply like to say running away is never a solution. If you have moral courage, you don't run away.
Well, there must be more than what meets the eye, sir. And we don't know. Again, we should not pass any comments, but don't run away from the fight. I agree with you on that. So we'll see how it plays out. In summary, Professor Nalapat, I wanted to say that this influence of Chinese through multiple layers of shell companies is something that is a huge concern. And in fact, Trump has clamped down on it. I can tell you that he has clamped down on it. Viewers might know I've explained this many times about how Chinese were coming with the total suitcases full of money and buying up properties after the 2008 crash. And that had to be stopped because a lot of that was laundered money. And Trump did stop that. And then the money started coming through Canada in the form of a check issued from a Canadian bank. And even that was stopped. KYCC was introduced. So a lot of good things he has done. Let's hope that, the American people see through some of the mud that's being thrown back and forth and vote who they think is the right president. Sir, you have something to say in summary.
Well, I'd like to say that I've written in cold print that Chinese prefer Joe Biden as the president of the United States. And frankly, all the statements that have been coming out of the Biden campaign on China have been quite disappointing, if you ask me. Now, the Biden campaign has been focusing on Russia. Where does Russia get his money from? Has Joe Biden asked that question? I don't know. I don't think so. Where is Russia getting the funds from for its influence operations? Where are some other countries? Where is Pakistan getting the money from to do so much of damage and mischief against India? Where is the money coming from? Go back to the Department of Homeland Security in the United States. You track the money, you track the source, you track the motive. A lot of that money is not coming to Russia, is not coming from Russia or from Pakistan. It's coming from another country. And may I say one thing, Sri? I have always had great respect for China, for Xi Jinping, and for Chinese Communist Party. I don't agree with their objectives. I don't agree with their methods. But I'd like to say their complete, ruthless dedication to the drive for primacy is something that we need to watch for. And I think, I'm sorry to say, that so far as the United States is concerned, in Republican and Democrat camps, the complete existential threat to the United States that is being faced by the Sino-Russian alliance doesn't seem to be having sunk in to the extent that it should.
Thank you very much, Professor Nalapat. That was a very inspiring conversation because we came to understand a lot of the undercurrents that are happening around the world, and it seems to be almost always sourced from a single place. So viewers, that's it for now from today. From PGurus. Namaskar once again, Professor Nalapat. It's a joy having you on our channel, sir, and you brought out a lot of truths that have remained hidden. We have a free press, but a lot of stuff that we discuss in PGurus rarely finds it in print or in television. And viewers, please, may I request you to subscribe to our channel and also donate for our cause, because all this is happening because of the passion of a few individuals involved with our site. And again, thank you so much, Professor Nalapat, for taking valuable time out of your schedule to talk to us. Namaskar.